This week, healing without hospitals, building an e-bike,
Just want to check.
and would you trust an AI to get you fit? That looks exhausting. Welcome to Click. Hope you're doing okay. Now, last week, Lara ventured into her garden. This week, we've both been let loose into the outside world. Lara, how was it for you?
Oh, it was great. I've been on an electric bike and I managed to not fall off, unlike the last time I filmed with one. How was it for you?
Yeah, I have to say, I really enjoyed filming out and about again. So we've both done this bike thing, which you'll see later on in the programme. Oh, one other thing I've done this week is I've been to a comedy gig online, which was really funny. And the good thing is that the front row of the audience, if you like, had their mics live throughout, so you could hear some of the laughter, which really helped. And I just really enjoyed it.
That sounds great. And who would want to be in the front row of a comedy gig normally?
No, not me.
Anyway, as we start to move towards some sort of sense of normality, one of the things that was delayed during lockdown was non-emergency surgery. In England, the NHS had to free up 12,000 beds for COVID-19 patients, and that meant the delay of 2 million operations.
It means that people awaiting procedures like joint replacements have been left in pain, and the NHS itself has been left with a huge backlog of surgeries that could reach 10 million by Christmas. So how's that going to happen? And what can people do while they're waiting? Well, here's Jen Copestake.
Trying to be the fittest old age pension in the country.
80-year-old Brian Lewis has been waiting for a hip replacement in his home near Manchester since the lockdown began. Like millions of others, Brian was on the list for elective surgery before coronavirus, but since March, everything is on hold. He could cope with the pain for a few months and has been doing Zoom calls with his physiotherapist, but now is finding it very difficult.
This side here is completely gone from here to there, where the pain used to just be in the hip. Now it's the whole here, this whole of this leg is, I've got these big muscles in my legs which I can move, I've always been a very fit guy, but this excruciating pain. And I've reached the stage now where the deterioration has been so great, and the last 3 weeks I've been put onto a stick.
Doctors around the country are looking at ways that they can remotely assist the thousands of patients that are waiting for joint surgeries. This includes the creation of new apps and tools that can monitor them in new and detailed ways.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to our lab.
Fantastic.
Whoever you are, wherever you are.
This free app provides digital access to some of the orthopedic services a patient waiting for a knee or hip replacement surgery would expect to have in person.
Downloading this app is a great first step towards making a successful recovery from your surgery.
It's part of a service called My Recovery, which allows surgeons to monitor their patients at home. The coronavirus pandemic has accelerated the team's work to design more advanced ways of generating useful patient data for doctors.
These are infrared cameras, and they are all triangulated off of these dots.
Right.
So these are typically used in the computer gaming industry or in the film industry.
Using datasets from gait analysis labs around the world, they're training algorithms on millions of data points to create a new camera system that could one day be used with a simple smartphone camera connected to the internet. This would recreate the sophistication of a fully fledged gait analysis lab in anyone's pocket, enabling a surgeon the ability to confidently assess range of motion in a patient's knee post-surgery without anyone having to leave home.
So to create the algorithm, it has to be able to work on somebody's phone. So it has to be small and unique and quick. But to make that algorithm, we've had to process a lot of data over a lot of years.
Because of the vast amounts of training the algorithm has gone through, it can accurately identify the anatomy and range of movement to a degree similar to wearing a morph suit in an expensive gait lab.
So we are particularly interested in human motion capture. So we've taken lots of inspiration from the gaming world. What we're doing is a very accurate version of this using artificial intelligence to accurately measure joint function. So for a surgeon, can this technology for a smartphone camera tell the surgeon if that patient's leg is straight after surgery.
One of the hospitals advocating the use of these tools is in Wrightington. Birthplace of the modern hip replacement, the team here want to see more day case surgeries to shorten the time people spend in hospital and help clear the backlog.
There is an app in development, a specific version of the My Recovery app to support the day case patients. You can get a lot of information just by talking, but there are some things clearly you need to have some kind of examination. So some system to be able to, for example, measure the range of movement of a joint, accurately would be a benefit.
Artificial intelligence could be used in other ways to clear the backlog of cases. C2AI, an approved user of the NHS dataset, is offering a system of triaging surgeries. Their aim is to be able to prioritise patients based on their operative risk and physiology to rank them in order of priority. They've identified 14 key variables that correlate with risk of mortality and would be able to look at the whole country's surgical backlog at once.
We have a version of this where we can bulk load the full elective surgical list in one, so we're considering everybody against everybody.
If you're a patient, how do you think they react to something like this? Do you think people would feel neglected somehow if an AI is doing this?
I think people would want to know that there is a logic to it, and that if they're waiting behind people, that those people have a greater need. And that rather than it being done in an inefficient manner, that's been done in a logical manner.
There are large numbers of patients on list, records in terms of maybe their comorbidities. Have they got other problems which might mean that they're higher risk? So artificial intelligence could be used to sort of scan all that data and algorithmically come up with a list of patients that fit a certain category, a certain priority, rather than clerks having to go through that, or clinicians indeed having to go through all that data to try and prioritise patients.
I think the algorithm would probably be more sensible and more useful than somebody doing it, because they're going to use a pain thing, 1 to 10, old-fashioned thing, whereas an algorithm, there can be so many other things that can be taken into account that a human being can't take into account.
Brian and millions of other patients signed up for elective surgery may still have many months to wait, but using vast amounts of patient data and powerful computing systems can help the process and get them in and out of the hospital faster.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. This was the week that a 4G internet balloon service from Google's sister company Loon was finally launched in Kenya. It was announced 2 years ago, but is being fast-tracked now to help people stay connected during the pandemic. Facebook was heavily criticised in its own civil rights audit. The report called on Facebook to do more to tackle organised hate against minorities and religious groups. The social network said it would make some, but not all, of the changes recommended. A new video codec was revealed that could put an end to, well, this basically. Companies including Apple, Microsoft and Huawei have worked on the H.266 codec, which uses half as much data per video as its predecessor, so you could record twice as many videos before your phone gets full. If you've had enough of video call meetings, catch-ups and pub quizzes, there's a new way to get together in Microsoft Teams. Together mode cuts everybody out of their video and puts them in the same virtual room. Microsoft says it makes video calls feel more natural. Light-up drones have been used to promote social distancing in South Korea. 300 drones were used in this display above Seoul, which reminded people to wear a mask, wash their hands, and included a message of thanks to key workers. It wasn't advertised in advance to avoid drawing a big crowd.
Here in the UK, things are opening up, but we're still being told to only get public transport when it's essential, and that's led to a surge in sales of e-bikes.
The leap has been unprecedented. In May, as an example, we sold more bikes than we did in the entire year in 2018.
A decent e-bike can easily cost well over £1,000, and there are hundreds of brands to choose from. But the vast majority of them run on tech from just one manufacturer.
The number of Bosch powered electric bikes in the UK would be somewhere between sort of 60 and 80%.
But the big difference between e-bikes is how they're powered. Some have hub drive motors, which track your pedal rotations and power the bike's wheels. Today though, I'm using an even smarter crank drive bike. This uses a torque sensor to respond to how hard I press the pedals, and this monster of a battery means it can ride up to 100 miles. Not that I'm planning on going that far.
I've got my high vis, I've got my hat, and I've got my bike. Let's go. Oh wow, I can feel the power. This suddenly feels so light, I can't believe I'm going uphill.
Hitting 15.5 miles per hour, that's the legal speed limit for e-bikes in the UK, was pretty effortless too. Some countries do have higher speed limits for pedal assist bikes, but if you've seen cyclists putting in zero leg work at all, they're likely to be using a throttle system. These are less common, and in most EU countries you need special registration and insurance to ride them legally.
I was excited about the fact this could go fast, but I didn't think I was going to have the confidence to do it. Actually, once I got going, the weight of it made me feel so much more confident. Why did they have to speed limit it? But all of this really comes with a price tag, £4,706. Pretty shocking, really. But Spencer's been looking at a far cheaper solution.
Now, you may like the idea of an e-bike, but you might already have a perfectly nice bike already, thank you very much. The good news is you can retrofit your bike to make it electric using a conversion kit like this. Switch is a new front wheel with a 250 watt motor in the middle. It also comes with a power pack and a pedal sensor. Now, this isn't cheap, but it is cheaper than an e-bike, and the price you pay is also your time, which will be dependent on how confident you are at taking off wheels, tyres and brake discs. If you think you're going to get stuck, then you can pre-book a support video call.
You'll want a 4mm Allen key.
Yeah. Obviously, I only called them to demonstrate the service and not because I'm a completely clueless dingbat. Switch say that they'll make these kits to fit any size of bike. Basically, you discuss with them what you need and they'll build the wheel to order. And there's a special adapter for a folding bike like this one. It is a bit fiddly, but to be honest, I did find it perfectly manageable. And that's saying something because it's me. We have tyre and new wheel. Now, top e-bikes will use a crank-driven system. This is a hub-driven system. This magnetic sensor monitors how fast the pedals are going around, and then it takes that into account along with things like acceleration to try and work out how much power to deliver. It's not quite as seamless an experience, but it is a lot cheaper and a lot lighter. But you do have to accept that there will be some extra cables on your frame after this and a power pack attached to the handlebars. But assuming that won't upset your chi or your aerodynamics too much, you switch it on, select your power assist level and you're ready to go. First pleasant surprise, it wasn't a complete disaster. Being a total novice, I did expect it to be harder to fit than it was. Secondly, it is outrageously fast. I can't actually have it on the highest setting, not on the flats. It's just too fast. I hardly touch the pedals and I'm away. The only thing is that the power assistance doesn't always behave itself, sometimes cutting out when I need it and sometimes kicking in when I'm not even pedalling. Switch say the problem is most likely the pedal sensor not being perfectly aligned, and in fact a new design of sensor is going to be available in a few weeks. If you do want to return your bike to a normal non-electric, you can take the power pack off, which will leave it only about 1 kilogram heavier than it was before. Although I think that's enough exercise for one lockdown, don't you?
Great stuff. Now, you've tested pre-made e-bikes before. How did this actually compare?
Look, I have to be honest, I know it's the more expensive option, but I do prefer the system that looks at how hard you're pedalling and applies power accordingly, rather than this system which is looking at how fast your pedals are going around and having a guess, albeit a good guess, at how much power to apply. But this system is cheaper, so you know, you pays your money, you takes your choice.
And the spending may not stop at just the bike. Before lockdown, Simon Hancock put to the test some of the latest cycling gadgets.
With public transport, shall we say, not as attractive as it used to be, the bike has become the favoured way for a whole new wave of cyclists to get around town. But be you first-timer or old-timer, safety will remain a major worry. Well, surprise, surprise, our old friend technology has a few gadgets which claim to help. Take this Garmin's Varia bike light. It's half light, half radar. It's a really simple idea. You have your phone or your bike computer strapped to your handlebars like this, and the radar in here, as a car approaches behind you, gives you a visual and audio indication that it's doing so. Now, the question might be whether or not that is a good substitute for listening with your ears, but it's an extra bit of awareness of what's going on around you. But you might also, when you're buying one of these, want to take into the account that it costs £170. Some much needed reassurance or a classic bit of tech over-design, you decide. It's not just bike lights which are going smart, of course. There's also smart helmets, or smart airbags as the hoof ding likes to describe itself. Put it over your head, zip it up, and then activate it. And now, as I'm cycling along, if I have an accident and fall off, it will sense that and it will inflate to protect my head. We've had this on the programme a few times before, but this is the latest generation and comes with an app. Of course it does.
We'll be able to collect data of the life of everyday cyclists in the tens of thousands of hours and provide that to cities around the world who are looking for ways to improve the safety of cyclists in their city.
Cycling accessories getting connected is a big trend then, and bringing them all online opens up some interesting possibilities. This is the C-Sense light. It came out of a Kickstarter campaign, and what sets it apart from your standard light is that it's smart.
The light uses an accelerometer to monitor its environment up to 800 times a second. The type of data that we're bringing into that analysis is things like the condition of the road, the orientation of the cyclist, the cadence, their speed, the braking.
What this means is that the lights do some clever things while you're cycling. On the front light, as you're going around a corner, they seem to flash at a different speed, and equally with the backlight. As you are slowing down, for example, it acts a lot more like a brake light than a traditional bike light. But if you pair the light with a phone, the user gets some extra features. If you've got one on your bike and you say go and get a coffee somewhere, leave your bike outside, and someone tries to make off with it, you get an instant alert to your phone, which can be quite useful. In exchange, your cycling data is uploaded to the cloud, so C-Sense can analyse how people are cycling. One place that's been experimenting with this is the City of London.
There are some really interesting examples that have come out of this already. One is in relation to which bridges people are using, where this data is showing that on London Bridge, for example, compared to Southwark Bridge, the user experience might be less good because on Southwark Bridge there is a better cycling experience in terms of the braking and less swerving, which could indicate a propensity for accidents and things.
Data helps politicians justify logical decisions because they can show that they are logical, and it helps planners make decisions. If you measure where cyclists go now using C-Sense lights or apps or watches, whatever it is that you use, you're measuring what they're doing now. So you can't go, oh, well, that's where they want to go, so I'll build infrastructure that protects people who go there. Well, they might be going there because the place they want to go is a 2-lane motorway and they just can't. So careful interpretation of the data is as critical as gathering it.
The humble bike light then has turned bike accessory makers first into tech companies and now into data analysts. All that cyclists will care about, though, is that some of this will now genuinely help make the streets of our cities safer to ride.
That was Simon. Now, it might be that you can't get on a bike where you are, maybe you're just not ready to go out and about yet, but you can still get fit on an exercise bike, and Lara can help you there.
Oh, the things I do for this programme. I've been doing some high-intensity interval training, a spot of HIIT. Are you into that, Spencer?
So this is where you do incredibly short bursts of insanely intense exercise, right? It's horrible.
Well, it does get the exercise over with quicker, though.
Yeah, and then you collapse.
Hopefully not. I've been testing an AI bike called Carol. Now, it's based on the concept that doing 2 sets of 20 seconds going at full intensity amidst an 8-minute gentler cycle will give you the benefits of a 45-minute run. No sweating needed.
It replicates what's known as laboratory HIIT, high-intensity interval training that would usually be carried out in a lab with scientists. They'd be able to look at your data and understand your fat-muscle balance, creating the personalised formula and the resistance that you need. Here, the AI becomes the scientist. A few setup rides evaluating your physiology before optimising the workouts for you.
It's not about how long you spend exercising. It is not about volume. How much you sweat is not linked to effectiveness. The way exercise works is what it does to you at a molecular level.
Now, it's almost hard to keep going as hard as you can for that 20 seconds. But as soon as it's over and it's really easy again, it feels like it was absolutely pathetic.
Because what you're trying to achieve is something called rapid glycogen depletion. And that only happens when you hit your maximum power that you are literally capable of. We will know if you hit super maximal or not based on the amount of time you've held your peak power for. It's impossible to hold it for more than a fraction of a second.
Now, I'm no scientist, so all I can do is tell you how I felt. And even though I'm sure my heart rate was being pushed to the right limits, I was certainly going as hard as I could for those 20-second bursts, I still didn't feel like I'd done a workout afterwards. So each time I did this, I went for a good run after.
Okay, so this didn't fulfil my workout desires, but there is some science to the 20-second bursts. You only have to look at world athletics records to back up the idea that the body's ability to maintain maximal power deteriorates after the first 20 seconds of pushing to the limit, no matter who you are. The average pace maintained for 100 and 200 metres can't be continued for sprints that are longer than 20 seconds. So for Carol, this means that the user is being able to do the bits that they'll work the hardest at and get the greatest benefit from, and the rest is pretty easy.
Even if only repeated, say, 4 to 6 times, over a course of about 2 weeks, you can see improvements in fitness that are kind of equivalent to what you would get from much longer, sort of typical endurance, continuous training. It tends to have a more clearer effect on the heart and circulatory system. But for instance, as an example, this won't help you lose weight. Weight loss with exercise is about energy expenditure.
Wow, I have found a whole other side to Carol. 60 8-second sprints in 20 minutes, and I have never worked out like it. Okay, let's do this. Speed up and sprint. The only thing that did disappoint me a little bit, though, was that the AI works based on your last workout rather than in real time. So if you're feeling a bit tired, it's not really going to respond to that.
I can't deny being pushed to my limits, though. And in the longer term, the aim is for the AI to be able to react better in the moment. Maybe telling you just by holding onto the handlebars that you're too tired today. I guess we can only hope.
Do you need much more?
Now we just need a few more shots, Laura. Can you start pedalling full pelt again?
Stop it! I've been working so hard on that bike for weeks.
The things you do, like you say. Well, that is it for this week. I feel like I need to lie down after watching that.
You need to lie down. You can keep track of the team throughout the week on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and Twitter at BBC Click.
Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.